it says, at that time, meaning the end times, and for that, we could go back to Daniel 11, the end of it, what we read last week, which actually is very interesting, and this shows how the prophecy of the king of the north and the king of the south had to do with the very end times. And like I said, there was a fulfillment of it during the time of the Maccabees, but Yahushua, when he manifested, he said that it was gonna be fulfilled again, not directly saying the time of the Maccabees or those things, but the abomination of desolation, which is what they called the sacrifice that the emperor or of Greece made in the temple of Yahweh. So all of the story of the Greek Empire is found in the chapter 11 that we saw last week. But like I mentioned many times last week, there's a clear connection between what is said in that chapter with what is said in Daniel 9, which has to do with the very end times, and that is what is said right there on the chapter. So now, when we have that in mind, we can read as we did Daniel 11 and see how it correlates with Daniel 9 and therefore with the end times. How everything that happened with the Greek Empire was a shadow of what would happen at the end times with the last empire, the New World Order and the beast and the abomination of desolation, which will be the image of the beast mentioned in Revelation 13. So in the verse 45, which is the last of Daniel 11, it said, and he shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the exalted set apart mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and no one will help. So this was a verse mentioning how the beast would be destroyed at the end. And in Revelation we see how the fifth plague is when this will happen. The kingdom of the beast will be darkened. So that would happen at the fifth plague, last plague, which is pretty much during the last year of the last seven, the last week of Daniel, mentioned in Daniel 9, which, like I said, had a connection with Daniel 11. So this is the reason why they chose this as the end of chapter 11, because it has a close right there with the fact of that the beast will fall. But then chapter 12 starts with saying that during that time, meaning the end times, when all of it would be fulfilled, the coming of the beast and the coming of the abomination of desolation and all of that, this would happen. So that's why it says, at that time, Mikael shall stand up. This is very important. And there are some who have the interpretation that Yahushua HaMashiach was Mikael, who came in the flesh. However, for several reasons, many reasons I have mentioned many times, I believe Mikael to be the voice. That's why he's called, well, for many reasons, like I said, the voice of the shofar that harvests the chosen few during the transformation mentioned by Paul in Thessalonians and Corinthians, and obviously also by Yahuchanan in the book of Revelation. So there are many reasons why Mikael has to do or is connected with the second coming, the last. Mikael being the messenger, the envoy of Yahushua, mentioned in Revelation 22, when Yahushua says, I will send my messenger and he will testify of these things. He will testify of Messiah. So the last is Yahushua's messenger, just like the first, Yahushua, was and is Yahweh's messenger. So Yahweh sent Yahushua the first, and now Yahushua sends Mikael as the messenger, the second manifestation of the Almighty on earth. And that is why in this chapter we see that it is talking about the end. At that time, meaning the end times. Not only when we connected with the previous chapter and because of what we said there, but just because of always in the books of the prophets, the term at that time refers to the end times. So there are many reasons, and as we are going to see, it is obviously about the end times, this whole chapter. So there is no um, well, reason to go against the fact that it is talking about the end times. But like I said, chapter 11 has to do with the Greek Empire, and the chapters and verses were added later. So this was read all together. So some have taken it, and in a way, uh, can be connected with the way everything happened with the Greek Empire, and then how Yahweh appeared on earth through Mashiach. And that's when everything started again, and that's why he's called the last Adam. And that's why everything that happened with the Greek Empire right before Mashiach appeared had to happen again at the end times. And at that time, as we see in Daniel 12, at that time Mikael shall stand up. Mikael is one of the two malachim that are mentioned in the common scriptures or Bibles that most people have. There are some scriptures that add other books, and in those other books that they add, we find other, angels like Raphael. And in the book of Hanok or Enoch, we find other four malachim. So Gabriel, Raphael, and Mikael are the most common and known, but in Hanok, 7 appeared as the 7 malachim of Yahweh that stand before him. So Mikael is the one that is in charge of the. Actually, I think this would be important to mention it in the book of Hanok, chapter 20, verse 1. It says, "And these are the names of the set apart angels who keep watch. Uriel, which means my light is Elohim, or the mighty one, or others translated or can be translated as the light of Elohim. One of the set apart angels, namely the set apart angel of the spirits of men." Then it says Raguel, which is the one of the. It means the thunder of Elohim, the or lightning. One of the set apart angels who takes vengeance on the world and on the lights, meaning the fallen angels. Mikael, one of the set apart angels, namely the one put in charge of the best part of humankind, in charge of the nation. So Mikael, one of the set apart angels, namely the one put in charge of the best part of humankind, in charge of the nation. So even according to the book of Hanok, and as we are going to see in Daniel, because I just haven't read it, this is true. Mikael is the one put in charge of Israel, the chosen people, and meaning obviously the true Israelites. And therefore, as we know through Yahushua, those who follow Yahushua HaMashiach, since as Galatians and Colossians says, in Yahushua there is no Yahudi nor Greek, but that is in Yahushua. So those who are in Yahushua are what it says here, the best part of humankind, in charge of the nation. So the best part of humankind, those who have chosen the truth, Yahushua HaMashiach, as sovereign, as Kohen Hagadol, and Yahweh puts Mikael, the Sar, or prince, over the nation, and that's why he has to appear on earth in the end times to defend that nation, even as a man, being one of the two witnesses. And when he is killed, like his sovereign, his savior, Yahushua HaMashiach, then he receives authority to kick Satan out of heaven, and that is what we see in Revelation 12. That is why first the virgin, which is the earth, the earth gave birth when she was a virgin to Adam. Now the earth is having birth pains, and that is the end times. And when it comes to people, is going to give birth to the chosen few. But the congregation of the chosen few, which is the virgin now, is going to give birth to the last, which is Mikael, who comes as one of the chosen, being the prince who will become the king of kings once he dies, as Mashiach did, being Kohen Gadol. Now his messenger, and as we always mention, the messenger represents he who sent him in everything. That's why Yahushua said, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. So that's why first and last, through Yahushua HaMashiach, the first, and the last being his messenger, Mikael, who, as we see in Revelation and Daniel and many other parts, is the one sent to defend the nation, just like David. So Mikael is the one who will fulfill what David left as a shadow through his life, and then also Moshe and Yaakov and many others in scriptures. So Mikael, one of the set apart angels, namely the one put in charge of the best part of humankind, in charge of the nation. Then he says, Sarakael, one of the set apart angels, who is in charge of the spirits of men, who cause the spirits to sin, who is in charge of the spirits of men who cause the spirits to sin, meaning to punish those who become a stumble block for others, pretty much. Gabriel, one of the set apart angels, who is in charge of the serpents, meaning the seraphim, certain type of angels who had a shape of serpents of fire. In the garden, in the cherubim, or the certain type of angels, also that have 4 different faces and cover, just like they covered the throne. So Gabriel, or Gabriel, is the angel that appears the most in scriptures and is the one who announced the birth of Mashiach. That is why some people take it as Gabriel announced and Mikael was the one who entered Miriam's womb. But like I have said, Yahushua, and obviously because scripture says it, Yahushua is the word and the last is the voice. So they are 2 separate parts that, when one speaks, come together. But before one speaks, there is no voice, even though the word may be in your mind or written, like Yahushua being the word, but now the voice, which is Mikael, the envoy, the one who will call on the chosen, will call the chosen few, being that the sheepfold of Yahushua, to come together and go to the Father through the way that Yahushua made, being he himself the way and the door, as he said it. So going back to Daniel 12, so now we know that Mikael is the one, according to the book of Hanok, the one that is put in charge of the chosen few. So that is the Malach of the chosen few, the Malach of Philadelphia, pretty much, the congregation mentioned in Revelation 3, and is the one that fights for that congregation, for those people, that nation. So also that is important because, as I have mentioned many times before, in the second heaven, since Yahweh is in the third heaven, or pretty much he is the third heaven that in which everything exists, the second heaven, which is pretty much when he created space itself for matter to exist, and then creation got formed, Yahweh made in the second heaven several angels, and through different things that happen in him showing justice and revealing himself through the word Yahushua, the light, and then through the voice Mikael, the fire, he revealed to those malachim at a certain point in time and gave a different position to each malach, and that's when pretty much Halel, or Lucifer, got his power or authority over the rest of the angels, and then rebelled once Adam and Eve were on the garden, and he came down to offer the fruit, so the fruit of knowledge. And that's a huge story right there, but I'm just trying to point something out. and it's the fact that Hillel received the authority in the second heaven over all the angels. And we are seeing that Yahweh has 7 angels, like I said earlier, and it's in Revelation, and they manifested to pretty much condemned Samael, the first Malach that fell, and when he fell, the authority was given to Hillel. So Yahweh pretty much subjected Mikael as a Malach in the second heaven to the one that he has or had given authority to, which was Hillel. Just like we see in scriptures that it happened with Shaul, the first king of Israel, and Hillel, Shaul being a representation of Hillel, Lucifer, and then David, who was a shepherd, who was he's presented as a youth pretty much, who didn't deal with politics and nor with the protocol that they used for even fighting when he goes to fight Goliath, and he just goes as it is, the way he came in, the way he would pasture his sheep. So it is very interesting to see the story that we are given of David, and see how David represents Mashiach, both first and last, but because of the fact that he came as king and he shed blood and other reasons, he represents the second coming, the branch of David. So the last, meaning Mikael. That's why I said that Mikael would manifest to fulfill what was shadowed by David and others. So the fact that David was under the king of that time, Shaul, and he respected his authority and everything, but even so, Shaul, because of a spirit that entered him, wanted to just kill David because of the envy that he had for him, for many reasons. So Shaul wanted to kill David, and that is like what happened pretty much in the heavens, between Hillel as Shaul and Mikael as David. So that's why when Mikael manifests on earth, Hillel will make sure to kill him, and then Yahushua, because of the last believe in Mashiach, will be resurrected and therefore receive the authority to take Hillel out and become the throne, just like David took over the kingdom after Shaul died. And Shaul died because Yahweh decided pretty much, and then he tried to commit suicide but couldn't do it right. So the story with Shaul and David is like Hillel and Mikael. So that is very important. And like the reason why I started with all of this is because what we just read in Hanok, Mikael was the one in charge of the chosen few, the nation. Pretty much before Mashiach was just those of the flesh of Israel. That was it. But there was an angel over all the angels. All the angels, or of all the angels, there were 70. And they were above all the nations. So each nation had an angel above them. So those are 70. And then Yahweh chose Abraham and his seed, and from it came Jacob, and he made one nation. That was Mikael over that nation. So that's 71. And then Hillel was over all of those nations, being the one that was supposed to bring the account of everything to Yahweh. But then he decided to keep everything to himself and act like if he was the one to whom everything and everybody had to give account to. So when we see that the 70 angels over the nations, then Mikael over the nation of Israel, as we just saw, and Hillel was above those 71, so that made 72. That's why there's a lot spoken about a name of, well, about that, not a lot, but a name of of 42 letters and one name of 72 letters. Then also we see of the 72 demons of Goesha, and 72 names of Elohim taken from 3 verses of Exodus. And when we separate each letter of each verse, we end up with 72 names for Elohim. So that number 72 has to do with that pretty much. 72 in the simple numbers that we see in Hebrew would be ayin, the I, which is 70, and 2, the bet, which is 2. So 72 could be represented by the ayin and the bet. So it would be like the I over the house. That's why there was that angel over the creation, and now he is worshipped as the all-seeing eye. Hallel, I mean. So I hope that huge introduction didn't get you bored, and I hope it was everything understood. If not, just leave your question and I'll continue. So it says, at that time Mikael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. So this is a confirmation from what we just read in the book of Hanok. In Hebrew, it says, and at that time, he will stand, Mikael. Also, the name Mikael means who is like him, or well, who is like Elohim, who is like the Almighty. It is actually a question, and is the question that he made when Hillel said that he was gonna become like the Almighty, and he would sit at his right hand, and all of that he said in Isaiah 14. So when Hillel said that he would be like Elohim, Mikael stood up, and that's why he got the hate from Hillel. That's why everything that I just explained about Shaul hating David. Now, when Hillel said that, Mikael stood up and said, Mikael, and that's why he got that name, and became the representation of Elohim. So the same question is the answer, because Mikael means who is like Elohim. So that's the answer and the war cry that Mikael made when he heard that Hillel wanted to be like Elohim. So he asked Mikael, pretty much a rhetoric question, saying nobody is like Yahweh. Hillel was crazy to think that he was even, that it was even possible, because there's no way that a creation as a malach, in this case Hillel, because Mikael actually, as the voice of Yahweh, pretty much had a different source, but like I said, he was subjected just like David for a time was under Shaul, even though spiritually he was king of Shaul. I hope that's understood. So pretty much just like Yahushua came to this earth, the voice, Mikael, entered the second heaven and was subjected to the rules of that heaven. I hope that's understood also. So Mikael said that question when Hillel decided to rebel. Just like when Hillel said, well, the serpent said to Eve, to Hava, eat of the tree, because if you eat of it, you will be like Elohim. So once again, when the serpent goes to Hava and tells her that she will be like Elohim, the Malach says Mikael. So he receives that name, and that means that he gives testimony through his name, because each name has to do with the mission that the Malach has. And so much so that, at least in Judaism, it is said that they don't have actually names like we do. They have titles. and each title has to do with the manifestation, with the mission that they have to do when they manifest. So they receive other names depending on the mission that they have. So that's why also it is said that Mikael is also called Metatron. However, in Jewish writings, it is written that there are two Metatrons, and I say Jewish, and I could say also, well, Yahudim, and what I mean by that is that most of the things are a tradition of those who rejected Mashiach. So that's when I say Jewish. But some of those writings do have some positive information that comes directly, obviously, from Israel. So, in those writings, we see that Metatron is Mikael, but then we also see, well, that is in the revelation of Zorobabel, that it says that Mikael, he who is Metatron. But then there's another writings that I would say are in a not as revealed perhaps, but it's more of tradition, opinion, and taken from other writings of all, that it says that there are two Metatron. And because of what they believe and what some say regarding Metatron, it is possible that that name was given to Hillel because of the fact that he was the one representing the Almighty. And like I said, and as it is written in Haggai 2, Yahweh will destroy the throne of the nations, meaning the angel over whom the presence of Yahweh is placed to control this world, the nations, 70, like I said. So that Malach is the throne, and Metatron has to do with throne. So it means that that Metatron would be destroyed in order to bring the other Metatron, which would be Mikael, whose war is to take the lie that Satan told Chava, show that only he himself, well, that he is one, yet he manifested as Yahushua HaMashiach. And like I have said, Yahushua is the way. So Yahushua is the me, as in who is like Yahweh. That's why Yahushua said to Philip, if you have seen me, you have seen the Father. So when Mikael said that, Mikael, he was saying Yahushua, his son, is like the Father. Yahushua is like Yahweh, not Hillel. Because that is why Yahushua is sitting at the right hand of the Father. That is where Hillel wanted to place his throne. So the question of Mikael has different levels, and the last level is the fact that Yahweh ultimately gives to Mikael the gift of becoming the second coming, and therefore receiving his image, his semblance. That's why also David said that he would be satisfied once he would be resurrected, being his image, in his image and likeness. So that means that Mikael, through dying, will become one with Yahushua and will receive that blessing, and therefore his name also can be taken as a statement, because he will become the face, the voice, whom people will see when they want to come to the Almighty being on earth, because Yahushua at the right hand of the Father would be accessed, if we could use that word, pretty much only by the chosen few. That's why Yahushua said, the world will not see me again, yet you will see me, the chosen few, the disciples, who represented the 144,000, 12,000 from each tribe. So Yahushua said that he's only going to be seen by the chosen few, 144,000, the disciples, the prophets. But the rest of humanity, who actually rejected him but accepted him with combined with a lie, pretty much, which is what happens in most of the world and doctrines, but they loved their neighbor as themselves, and all of that we have spoken. They are justified if they believe in the death and resurrection of Messiah. So they will be resurrected as the people, and they will have to face or see the last Mikael as he became man. And that is why I have said that just like there is the set apart temple or set apart place in the temple, and then the most set apart place, and it was separated by a veil, which was well, each veil of the temple, like I have said, represents each Satan. But in this case, the fact that the people that are in the set apart place would see one face of the veil, and the Kohen Hagadol, which was fulfilled by Mashiach, would see the other face of the veil, is pretty much to show how the chosen few, who are Yahushua's body, will be able to see the inside of the temple, meaning heaven, while the many who will be justified will only be able to enter the set apart place, meaning this creation perfected, and will have to see the face of the last. Those who enter will see the other face, the first, the same person, two faces. Hope that's understood. Just like it was believed by the Jewish people that that Adam and Eve were like that, one face to the front, one face to the back, when they were created. Yet it is written that Yahweh took Eve from his side. So then they have a bunch of other opinions, because they say, well, if it was on the back, why did it take it from the side? So at that time, Mikael shall stand up. There was a lot of explanation just to show or prove a point, and that is that Mikael will have to come to earth in the end times, and that means one of the two witnesses. That is something that I haven't heard much, or none, not one time, just in case. But what I have read is regarding Mikael being Yahushua, but there's reasons which I haven't mentioned, and I won't right now because I already spoke a lot, to show that Yahushua is the word and Mikael is the voice, and that means one of the two witnesses, who was represented by Moshe and David. So that's why it says, at that time Mikael shall stand up. Most people read this verse and just go through it, and they just imagine Mikael in the heavens, and that's it, standing up to say, we're gonna fix this or something like that, because the stand up mentioned there in Hebrew has to do with standing up in judgment, which is interesting because as the two witnesses, the actual name witness is a name given to somebody in a court when judgment is being brought upon someone. So they bring the witnesses to say who did it. So like I said also, Mikael, who was the one who said, who is like Elohim, when Hillel said, is pretty much the one to confess or testify in the negative sense that Hillel rebelled in the heavens, and obviously when becomes a man, the fact that Yahushua was able to defeat Satan and all his malachim when he died on the cross. So that's why Mikael comes as a witness and has to stand up to testify. And standing up in scriptures also is a term that is used regarding someone entering the word of the living. So just like when one goes to rest, lays on, just lays down, and dreaming or sleeping is the same as dying, spiritually speaking. So is standing up to act, not only in a spiritual way, but literally entering this reality and standing up as one of humanity, as a human. That's why Yahweh prophesied that he would manifest as a Gibor. Gibor is a term used for when the angels entered this reality as men, normally used for men who did a lot of evil, like the Nephilim, those who were hybrids. In this case, Mikael would not come as a hybrid or as a Nephilim, like that term, but yes, as a Gibor, because of the fact that he is a malach who entered this reality as a human through a regular relation of man and woman. So just like a soul enters a womb to get a body, pretty much the soul that would enter would be that of the malach, Mikael. Hope that's understood. So standing up has to do with entering this reality as a person. Second has to do with standing up to testify in court because he comes as one of the two witnesses. And his own name shows his testimony. Who is like Elohim? Mikael. Who? Me. Ka as El Mighty One. Elohim. So his own name testifies that Yahushua is like Elohim because Yahushua is represented by the me, and the last, like I have said, is represented by the ma in Hebrew, which is what. So at that time Mikael shall stand up, the great prince, who stands watch over the sons of your people. Just like when David was able to kill more people than Shaul, and they made songs of him, and they praised him, and Shaul got all jealous and wanted to kill him. That's why we see here the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. Shaul was in the palace, and David was killing the enemies of Yahweh and the kingdom. So the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. Here, Daniel is the one who is receiving this prophecy hundreds of years before Mashiach. So he's talking about the people, Israel, of course, when it says, over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble. He's talking about the tribulation, the end times. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. Such as never was since there was a nation. Right now, even this year, and I'm not saying anything about the time in which we could be, like I have said, we must wait if during this autumn, which already started, I think it was, is it today? Yeah. Regarding, well, meaning in the true calendar, of course, depending on where everybody is, that will be the weather, but this is the day in which autumn starts, and therefore, if the war starts in the next 3 months, then we could say that it's the second seal. And there are a lot of things that are suspicious regarding that, meaning a lot of people are talking about war right now. So we should keep our eyes open. But like I said, I was doing all the calculating with the next year, if it were to be next year, and there were a lot of interesting things regarding the connections that would be made when the two witnesses are captured and killed. And basically there will be an eclipse when they will be captured, eclipse of the moon, and then there will be an eclipse of the sun when the chosen few would have to go to the mountains on Sukkot, and that would be when the false Messiah will appear on earth. So if he appears on an eclipse, it will be pretty interesting, and a lot of people would buy the show. So I'm saying all of that because what we read here, and there shall be a time of trouble. Right now, we could not be even in that last week of Daniel yet. Like I said, it could start next April. It could not only, well, you already know. But if it started next year, that means we are not even in the last 7 years. We're not even in the last week. And look at the world right now. It's amazing how much trouble there is in the world. For the world. It's amazing how fearful everybody is, how broke a lot of people are, how depressed. I should add another because of the lockdown, a lot of people are depressed and wanting to commit suicide and all of those things. The floods in many parts of the world. Locusts, I'll mention that many times also, in certain parts eating all the food. The fires in a lot of parts also. It's amazing. Volcanoes erupting. the almost civil war or the protests that are done in name of Black Lives Matter and other things now, uh, well, a lot of things that are happening is amazing. I mean, it's amazing how there are still atheists when there's a scripture that foretold everything. So, anyways, and there shall be a time of trouble, that is the tribulation. So it shows that Mikael would stand up for the tribulation to protect the chosen few. That's why in Revelation we see that there is a Malach Mikael with the seal of the living Elohim, the one who will seal the chosen few with the name of the Father and the Son, as seen in Revelation 14. So Mikael is the one who appears as the good shepherd to seal each of the sheep of Yahweh, to save them during the harvest, as the wheat of Revelation 14, while the many are the grapes. So there shall be a time of trouble. We see Mikael stands up as a witness in the tribulation, meaning the first 3.5 years. So he stays like laying low in a way, because he comes as a thief in the night, meaning Yahweh keeps him hidden. Pretty much also like Joseph was in jail before he became the second to the Pharaoh. Also just like Moshe was in jail, and many other that I have mentioned, stories in which the person that would become the Redeemer was hidden from everybody, and sometimes even in plain sight, like I said with David. So the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. In Hebrew that is Hasar Hagadol. Hasar Hagadol, that is the one who will become in Melech Hagadol, meaning the great king. Yahushua came as the Kohen Hagadol. The last is the Melech Hagadol. So Mikael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. Right now, the last generation is the worst, even worse than Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah was just an example, and as it is written in scriptures, this generation would be worst, and it is clear when you pretty much pay attention to many details, because obviously through political correctness and many other things they have hidden it. And I don't doubt that in a way they were like that in Sodom and Gomorrah, because the serpent is cunning, is uses the wisdom that he has to fool people. So obviously it's not gonna appear obviously evil, and that's how this world has become so evil, because it's so hypocritical, so fake, so full of that leaven of the Pharisees, which Yahushua said, take care not to have any of it in you. Yet the world decided to add a lot more than it had already when the Pharisees killed Mashiach. So they will obviously want to kill the two witnesses, since they will say that Mashiach was right. So at that time, Mikael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. Even in our time, we can see, even in one person's life, that person can testify of the fact that the world has been worse than ever, because that person can even read a lot of history, but his or her own experience will show that this world is done. Even to that time,